It is my current goal to beat the game of Pokemon Yellow using every single Pokemon available in the Pokedex for this game. That means all 151 Pokemon being used in solo challenges every single week. And this week, we're going to take a look at the Pokemon Jigglypuff. Now, immediately, I want to point to the right-hand side of the screen at that move pool. You're going to notice something kind of glaring. Level 1, you get the move Sing. And then you don't get anything until level 9. Now, luckily, when you start the game, your Pokemon does start at level 5, not level 1. So there's only 4 levels to go, but pretty shocking, pretty difficult. So we're starting off at a huge disadvantage to begin with. It does mean off-rip, we kind of know it's going to be a long journey, a very slow start for this Pokemon. Even if it has a fast level experience kind of like growth pattern, right? You're still going to be struggling just because of the fact that, I mean, literally, you're going to be struggling like we just did to somehow get that W. I mean, genuinely, when this happened, when I was recording it, I just started looking at this Pokemon for a hot second. I went into that menu, started looking at what my stats were, what just happened, because then there's something like this, you know, where I went against a Pidgey, missed Sing once and half my health was gone. So, you know, there's a lot of challenges here with this Pokemon. If you look at those stats, there's another thing that I think is pretty obvious kind of immediately up front, that the attack is pretty high, but the special, the speed, and the defense are considerably lower. That is going to cause some problems as I black out for the very first time while trying to train this Jigglypuff. I'm not going to necessarily count the blackouts, at least not in the beginning, because we've not started the mission really, you know, like we haven't even gotten the Pokedex yet. I figured we'll really start counting everything once, you know, the stakes have truly begun within the game. But going back to that move pool, while I'm struggling to defeat anything right now, we'll take a quick look at what we've got at our disposal. So first things first, of course, like I said, we've got Sing, then we get Pound at level 9. That's great. That'll give us something with Stab. Wonderful. You love to hear that. Same type attack bonus. Then we'll get Disable, which might be helpful in the beginning of the game. It really won't be super great in the late run of the game. And that is because in Gen 1, Disable does not work the same way as it does from Generation 2 and beyond. In Generation 2 and beyond, what happens with Disable is when you use it, the last move that your opponent used is the move that becomes disabled. But in Generation 1, it just randomly selects a move that the opponent's Pokemon knows to disable. So it could disable the thing that you're looking for, maybe the move that's super effective against you, perhaps, but it also could just, you know, get rid of Tail Whip, and then, you know, you're kind of still getting your butt handed to you by Double Kick or by Submission. I'm just trying to think of any of the only types of moves that would really do any kind of actual major damage to our little puffball here, which is any fighting type move, but that is also kind of not necessarily a thing that we need to really worry about today. There's not a lot of fighting moves that we're going to run into, so that's actually kind of good for us. I'm going to skip Defense Curl for a second. We're going to come back to that in a moment. We also get Double Slap, something I will not use at all in this video. Rest could be a great move, but I'm going to skip that one as well. It's very interesting. I know a lot of Pokemon content creators that will end up using Rest sort of strategically for health and everything like that. I'm not big on the Rest gameplay just because I feel like there's a little bit of a gamble with the fact that when you go to sleep, you then stay asleep for 2 turns. I don't like the idea that I can heal, but then still take damage for 2 turns, and then wake up and maybe be in the exact same spot I was in. Next up, we have Body Slam, which is great. That's a move that I can also learn via a TM, which means I will probably end up having Body Slam before I can actually learn it. So, you know, I think we're going to kind of expect that move no matter what. Anyway, Double Edge is also a pretty great move, but because there's recoil and there's no items used in battle or anything like that, Double Edge is a little bit of a double-edged sword, and so we're not going to really be using that today either. Now, we've got a pretty good set of moves here that we can learn through TMs, actually, but you're going to also recognize one other thing, that I've already sort of alluded to previously in the beginning of the video. But looking at a lot of these moves, a lot of them are specifically special-based moves. And when you look at Jigglypuff's stats and sort of look at how it levels up and what we're going to sort of end up with, the special won't be like awful for Jigglypuff, at least not for a, you know, pre-evolution Pokemon. But really, its claim to fame here is going to be the attack. It's a little bit of a glass cannon today. Not a great amount of defense. And so we're really not going to be able to take a lot of hits, especially anything that just does regular, like large amounts of damage, like an earthquake, a psychic. Those types of moves can still be pretty devastating to the HP, even if we're just sort of at a normal resistance. But real quick, stepping in as just a very fast little kind of aside here, we are going up against the rival here just because I feel like it's going to be important. And I'm making an interesting choice here, which is simply to go for the struggle tactic to take him down. I actually think Pound could have worked just as fine. Getting hit with the accuracy debuffs twice does mean that we get our very first reset here. And this is just sort of like a good example of like the fact that like my defense is not really that great. And my offense is the best thing that I have going for me. And when they do anything that kind of cuts that down, could be worse for me. Now, granted, again, like needing to get the hits in before the accuracy debuffs happen, I'm hitting struggle a lot, but missing quite a few times. But either way, eventually I get the W and we get to move on because we now have the Jolteon team locked in for the end. Typically, the team that I try to go up against, I think I have the best plans for them, but you know, you never know when I want to change it up, but that will not be today. Now, I realize that 14 minutes into the game to get to Viridian feels pretty wild for this, and 7 minutes into the video is very late for that. And again, we had to grind to get Pound. You've seen it, you know, we've already talked about it. So I'm going to talk about one final thing, and then we can finally move on to Brock. Thank you so much for your patience. This is a complicated one, but like in a fun way. So I appreciate kind of the ability to sort of take a moment to talk about all the things that makes this particular Pokemon interesting to work with. Now, the reason why I said I wanted to come back to Defense Curl and why we are going to keep it on the team's move. Team is interesting. It's a single Pokemon. We do have Pokemon to use HMs, but there is no I in team, but there is in Jigglypuff. But for Jigglypuff, having Defense Curl is going to be great because it is a stat modifying move. And that is something that you want to really use to your benefit in Gen 1 specifically. There was a glitch that happened where every time you used something that recalculated your stat stages, it would then reapply badge boosts to any stat that has a corresponding badge attached to them, right? Boosting it by 1/8 of what its set is currently. So what that means is that effectively every time I use Defense Curl to move up one stage and boost what I have, when I have the Pewter City Gym badge, right, what will happen is then my attack will also go up by 1/8 of what it is currently. And then, of course, that will then stack if I then do it a second time and a third time. So it keeps going up. So using something like Swords Dance, Agility, again, Defense Curl for today's purposes, moves all of your stats that have any kind of badge boost associated with them. So this is going to be very beneficial for a Pokemon that maybe needs a little extra special, maybe probably more than likely, frequently more speed. Speed's going to be, I think, a bigger issue for a Pokemon like Jigglypuff. So it's going to be very great for us once we start getting those badges. We're going to start moving through the game even quicker, especially in the late run of the game. Having Defense Curl is going to be great for people like Lance or the Champion. People like that, we're really going to benefit from these moves. But at this point, now that I've gotten through all my spiels, we are already in the gym. So it is time to take on Brock. Okay, yeah, totally fair. Level 15, maybe okay for Vulpix, not good for Jigglypuff. So despite having just been like, you know, oh, we just did a lot of grinding and it's like we're going to finally move past that and then we're going to go up against Brock. Yeah, I had to go back and I had to grind more. I had to do so much more. I went from level 15. I'm going to end up at level 18 in a little bit here. And like that feels like it should be enough. I probably could have gone to 19 to get to Defense Curl, but boy, 25 minutes in and still no badge. Doesn't feel great. Doesn't feel super great. I'll be honest. It feels like we should be well beyond this point, at least for a normal type Pokemon, just because of how well equipped they kind of are for the game overall. But after the big grind, we make it back to Brock, and so we should finally, hopefully, be okay. Luckily, we can pound pretty well, like we're actually doing pretty decent damage against Geodude, which is great. We are at about half health going into Onix, which is not the perfect situation, but this is where, okay, I took a big gamble, doesn't work there. So we're getting way too low, which is making me a little nervous, but also typically, we can sit there and use Sing and get a few extra moves in because it's trying to it's trying to do this thing. It's locked into this move for a little bit. And so he's not getting these full heals out. We get down to 1 health. This is pretty unfortunate. We are at the precipice of danger. Luckily, we get 1 last sleep off. And we probably didn't even need it because we could have just hit twice and defeated him. But just in case it was going to take 3, I wanted to get that in. So we were in bad territory for quite a while there, but in the end, we won out. And we are immediately cutting over to Cerulean. There's not really much to talk about in Mount Moon. It's one of those things where I frequently try and show at least every area in every video, but because we took so long earlier, I figured let's just immediately go to the next rival fight. I feel like that's the next thing that's going to hold any kind of interest for anyone. Luckily, Jigglypuff is still, again, pretty high level. We're hitting pretty hard. We're not taking any debuffs right now, knock on wood, at least for later. And we're making pretty quick work, although, again, I'm doing the defensive curl move here to get my attack up. Not really sure I needed it, but I'm still doing it. So that way I do 1 hit Eevee. There's no more sand attacks or anything like that. So the rival is done. Then I'm going to go heal up. I'm going to finish the route above, talk to Bill, turn him back into a human. And then, of course, we're here at Misty's gym, where right now I don't have anything that's like super effective against anyone here, including Misty. But again, that attack is pretty beefy right now. 51 for a pre-evolution Pokemon is feeling pretty strong. Again, the defense, the special, all that's still pretty low. It's about half of what my attack is, which is pretty crazy to think about, honestly. But just throw a few potions on this sucker, hit save, and it is time to go. What has she got in store for us today? Well, first and foremost, she does outspeed. Even if I do the defense curl situation, I don't have a badge boost for speed yet, so won't be happening. I do try to put Staryu to sleep multiple times. It takes forever to make it happen. Then I'm going to continue to defense curl, but then I'm like, wait a minute, I'll probably level up after this. I didn't really think about that part. So, we're only going up to 5, which feels like too many. I probably should have only done a couple, because technically it's going to reset itself there, and I can only stack it 1 more time here. But I at least get the sleep off. We're back up in our attack. It wakes up a little early, a little quickly. We get very low, and yeah, that was a misplay. I'm recognizing that pretty quickly. I desperately need to just make sure that I'm not overdoing the defense curl in the beginning. It's really just more of a, I needed to pay attention more to if I was leveling up, just because that would reset all the other stats that were not from the actual move, because that stays the same, but everything that's just boosted because of the badge boost glitch gets reset, because again, it's readdressing it and it's going back to changing the lower numbers. So, it's all those sorts of weird things on how numbers work. But this time we are back to Starmie. Starmie is still asleep when we get the last punch off, or rather technically it wakes up last second, but you get the idea. So we get the TM and we move on. We teach Bubble Beam, and we're now moving on to SS Ann, where we are going to do our typical pickup. I'm at level 31, which does mean that in 3 levels, I could just get Body Slam naturally. I don't know. Part of me kind of wonders if I should have just done that. I probably could make do with Pound for 3 levels, but honestly, the quicker that I have Body Slam, the faster I'll make it through defeating everybody on SSN. That's right, I am going to train fully through here, but as you can see, it really does not take me that much time. It only took me like an extra minute and a half or so, and that really just came from just pressing and holding Body Slam. Did a quick heal, came back, we're fighting the rival. We, of course, since we have Bubble Beam, Sandshrew is not a problem. Body Slam handles everybody else, and just like that, we are through. Unfortunately, we have also hit an hour, which is a shame. We are definitely set behind by that slow start, but maybe we'll make up some lost time here against Surge, because as always, little spoiler here for you, he's not good. 2 Body Slams and he's done. Thank you for your service, I guess. Anyway, we move on. I'm usually not really showcasing the rock tunnel, but this is just one of those moments where we're rarely using a special based move, but because we have Bubble Beam, people like the exploding hiker are really not a self-destructing hiker, rather, is not a challenge at all. So we get to move on to Celadon City, where we are making quick work of this gym. I'm doing everything at a much faster speed here. I'm just sort of blasting through just to sort of show how quickly we can make it through, even without using any kind of moves that they are super weak against. We have an option for that if we really want to, but for now, I'm holding on to Bubble Beam. It feels right to hold on to Bubble Beam for as long as we can, just because there's a lot of ground and rock Pokemon that we're going to have to deal with for a little bit here. Mostly Giovanni's team, if I'm honest, but there's other people as well. Probably the bigger problems right now for us on the Rivals team also will be handled using Bubble Beam, with the exception of maybe Cloyster. But Cloyster, I think Body Slam, since Cloyster goes out early enough, at least currently, Body Slam should be able to handle it and we'll be fine. Now, we are using the defense curl situation against Erica. We are also unfortunately set pretty far back there. That was a little unfortunate how we took, or how long it took us to sort of get set up there. So we're going to have to do it again. We should be able to defeat Erica on the second try, though. Sometimes you kind of have to see like, okay, I've got a plan, but like if this doesn't go perfectly, what do I need to learn kind of from it? And so that's basically what we figured out. We figured out here that Bind, is really just one of those things where it just whittles away our HP, and it's really causing a problem. We have lost so much health. So, hopefully we can at least get everything built up. Again, it's really just going to be our attack and our defense. We've only gone up 3, which honestly feels not like our best choice, but it turns out that it is. I really expected us to need more attack power there, but we just sort of lucked out. Body Slam does it again. Speaking of doing it again, we are once again back at the Team Rocket secret hideout in the game corner. We are taking on the Team Rocket trio from the cartoon that becomes sort of a featured part of this game. They're usually like the last fight that you have before Giovanni. They also, of course, are a team that you fight at the Pokemon Tower and also in Mount Moon. Those are the 2 places where you fight them without Giovanni being present. You fight them 4 times, and they are never a challenge. So, kind of feels a little bit of a wasted opportunity, but I guess they were really never that hard to defeat in the cartoon either, so maybe that's perfect. Who is difficult to defeat in the cartoon version of, Pokemon, which Pokemon Yellow is loosely based around. Also, of course, still playing like the original Pokemon games, is the rival, but he is not a challenge of the Pokemon Tower. I honestly think that particular lineup might weirdly be the easiest fight we have against the rival at any time. And I think it's just because by the time we actually come to the Pokemon Tower, I think technically they want you to go in, fight him first, see that you can't see the ghost, then go to Celadon, right? So That's where I think they typically think that you're going to. But once you recognize that you don't need to do that, you level up so much that by the time you get to him, he's easy. Now, it's not easy. Koga, still, we are struggling a little bit. We already lost once while I was yapping away. And luckily, because we have that loss, it gives me an opportunity to get caught up and then show you how I'm once again using the defense curl situation with all these badge boost stats sort of going on. Now, right now, it's only giving us attack and defense, so it's not very helpful for our special. And of course, he is still using moves like Psychic, but we win out. Body Slam does the job. We take him down. And now we're scooting right on forward into Silphco against the rival again. I'm skipping around just a little bit today because we've seen so much of the sort of early grinding that I feel like some of the mid-game grinding is unnecessary. And I think it's kind of shown here that it's really not necessary because at this point, I have leveled up a pretty good amount. I actually think that we're pretty well set up. Level 60 is pretty high, especially for this portion of the game. We're doing quite well, actually. We're pretty far ahead of the curve. So luckily, he's not that big of a challenge at this point. We can heal up just a little bit in our pocket items, not even going back to a full heal station. Then we can go up against Team Rocket. 1, 2, and here goes 3. Team Rocket is blasting off again. It's the last time that we will have to deal with them. Do a quick little heal, then we're going to go on to Giovanni. And with this team lineup that he has, of course, Nidorino is potentially dangerous just because of double kick, but we get to go first, so we can one-shot him. Then we have Persian, who is being a little bit of a problem, at least in this particular moment, just because it is faster than us and it has been changing our stats. It has lowered our attack, so we have to do a bunch of defense curls while it's asleep to try and get the attack boosted. But also my speed is now up, so I do outspeed it, so the body slam does take it down. Now, we did not change our special, but we don't really need it because Bubble Beam is good enough to instantly take down Rhyhorn. Then Nidoqueen is up next, and even though she is able to sort of withstand a little bit more just because she doesn't have double type effectiveness there, Bubble Beam is still able to take it out fairly quickly, and so we can go heal up and then move on to Sabrina. We are really kind of flying now, in my opinion. Considering how much further we are into the game than we were about an hour ago is considerable. There's been a lot of side story and 3 more badges, and we're working on a 4th badge since that moment. We are able to get some setup here against Abra, which is great because there's been no debuffs, so we shouldn't be missing. Then we get to go in, we get to just body slam, and up, we do miss. That's a Gen 1 miss there, and we body slam again. It is down for the count. That was great, because they are also kind of glass cannons in a very different way. Now, we're moving on to Cinnabar Island. It's very difficult on the eyes, so I never showcase any of the movement there. I just always go directly to Blaine, which is fine, I think, by most of us. There's not a lot of great story per se on Cinnabar Island. The Pokemon Mansion is interesting, but not necessarily for this type of run. So already we are only a few more minutes in. We've actually made some pretty quick time to already go get everything that we needed, got some extra things. Now the biggest issue here though is that we did get burned and that takes us out. So we have to reset. Unfortunately, we are going to have to maybe use at least 1 rare candy here. We're going to use, I think, 2, 3. Let's see. We're going to use 4. We're going to use 5. That seems impossible. 6 seems too much. But I have to live with my choices. We are now at level 70. I actually probably would have preferred to use a couple fewer just so I could have some extra levels later, a little bit faster. But it doesn't really matter because honestly, Jigglypuff does kind of level up pretty quickly anyway. So we are now at level 70. We are much higher, although the burn is causing some problems, especially early. Getting the burn during Ninetales is kind of less than ideal. They do luckily miss the takedown, so we are good to go. And then a critical hit takes down Arcanine. Pretty great. Now we get to move on to the final gym, which, oh my goodness, it's Giovanni? What? Yes, that's right. We fight him a third time, this time with his ultimate lineup, with, of course, his most famous ground Pokemon, Persian. But we take out Dugtrio very quick. Oh. All right, well, that's kind of rude. I was in the middle of telling the story of what was going on, Giovanni. You didn't have to end the fight quite like that, but all right, well, we're back in it. We're going to try and put Dugtrio to sleep. He is faster, so the first dig goes off. Okay, great. Now he's asleep. We can use Bubble Beam. We're just going to take him out. We'll do some setup here against a Pokemon. Oh my god, man. Stop with the critical hits already. I mean, it's just time after time. Ugh. All right, so we get some defense curls in here. He does wake up. I take the time to go for a 6-1. If a slash with a critical hit happened, it wouldn't have mattered, but it doesn't matter because he doesn't get it. Now that is unfortunate because that was a critical hit, and that was a critical hit on double kick of all things. Something that's not even really all that powerful. Although, again, I was also kind of low health. I'll give myself that benefit of the doubt. But it's one of the only moves in this game that Jigglypuff is weak to, because since it's Gen 1, we are not Fairy type. We are Normal type for now. So we are taking some pretty hefty hits, I gotta say. Now, we've gotten a quick, good sleep off, and we've still got some better health than we did on the last one. So we are going to set up a couple of times. I only set up to 5 because it wakes up. Luckily, we get another Sing off very quickly against Nidoqueen. Then we do the last setup. We do a Bubble Beam. We're going to try and put him to sleep as well. This is dangerous because I'm taking a chance. If that had been a crit, that could have been bad. Luckily, because he's asleep now, can't do any more damage, I just go for that one. Twice the effectiveness, or really 4 times. So there you have it. We made quick work of the team. Well, sometimes I'd say we made quick work when it was a medium-paced amount of time. Either way, we have defeated Giovanni. We have the 8th badge, which means that we can go to the final rival fight before he becomes the champion. So we have 2 more times against him, and we'll kind of get a little sneak peek into his final lineup and a little bit of his strategy, because it is the same team, just 2 of them are under-evolved still. Execute and Kadabra will evolve before the final battle. But for now, you can kind of see what his sort of main steez is, what the plan is, his type coverage, and it's a pretty formidable team. I mean, as you can see right now, they've poisoned me and they've leech seeded me. This is tough. Execute, honestly, probably really shouldn't be an issue. I have been holding on to Bubble Beam only because there's another move that I want to use later that would be great against Execute now, but it also would get in the way of another Pokemon team that I'm fighting. So, it's a little bit of that thing that I alluded to in the very beginning of the video, which is we're going to do a little bit of move juggling here, because we're going to keep Sing because it's very helpful for when I'm trying to get the defense curls off, and also just helps us take no damage for a little bit, right? But at least in this sort of situation, yeah, we've only got Body Slam and then 1 special move to work with. Perhaps if a move like Double Edge or anything like that didn't take some of my HP away, that could have been a better investment. Okay. All right, NPC. Kind of rude. Was really thinking that was going to be the end of that one. Okay. Noted. Sometimes I take it personally when I feel like I'm ramping up to the end point of the section of the video, and then I forget that I have another loss. It feels like they've done a personal slight to me in real life, and that's not how that works at all, but that's a little insight into sort of how my brain works, I suppose. But here we go. We are back up against this team. We have made it through the first 3. Surely this time Cloyster won't be an issue because we'll do some setup, although we are losing some health to the Leech Seed, and I've got to keep a better eye on that, which I don't think I really am, because I'm down to 64 health, and Cloyster is still not one hit. Luckily, Kadabra is. The agility goes off for Jolteon, but it's pointless because I did do the 6 setups. It does mean that he is also 1. So I guess it worked out in the end. Now, this part is a little crazy. The timing and my leveling and everything like that is a little off. I'll be fully honest with you. The moves are going to be a little crazy because I'm going to have to do them by hand. Something happened while I was recording, which is that I somehow ran out of space, and I did not know that until I looked over during the champion fight and saw I was no longer filming. And so I had lost from somewhere around the middle of Victory Road up until the champions fight. So I blacked out, backed out to the lobby there because of course I had saved a couple of times in between there. So I probably should be at least 1 level down, and I think like 1 or 2 resets less, but I couldn't really remember where I had been at the time. I probably could have just looked it up in that moment, but I was trying to be a little quick with all of this. So yeah, the ending is going to be a little funky, but either way, we do sort of know what the situation is. Here's where the shuffling begins. So I get rid of Bubble Beam for Thunderbolt, which has been very helpful against Lorelei. And yeah, it'll be helpful against like 2 other Pokemon later, but I don't need it. So I'm going to swap out Thunderbolt for Psychic, because Psychic will be great, really honestly, against everybody on this team, but specifically the fighting Pokemon, which of course are super effective against me. Then we will be able to use Psychic again in the next room. So Psychic is actually, I think, the best way to go about it. That way I'm not changing the move 4 times. I can really just get away with doing it 3 times. Once before Lorelei, once before Bruno, and then once before Lance, and that will carry us to the end of the game. Now, we've gone through most of this team. I will say this is maybe the longest that Bruno has ever survived. Maybe it's all the badge boosts and all that other sort of setup, but it's good to have that just because of the fact that those fighting types are devastating for Jigglypuff right now. So we defeat him, we move on to Agatha. Agatha is unfortunate just because we do need to do more setup in order to outspeed everything. Those Gengars are fast, and we don't want them to be able to put us to sleep. If they put us to sleep, it could be game over. So we want to be able to get through this in one go. So by putting them to sleep, we can set up and then, of course, be faster than them so that they can't get any kind of setup against us. Now, we get poisoned here, which is also pretty great for us because it means they can't put us to sleep, which then means we can heal up, defeat her. Well, we defeat her, sorry, then we heal up. Yeah, obviously, I'm not healing in battle. I can't use items in battle. We know the rules. Then I'm going to save up and I'm going to swap out the final move for Ice Beam. And Ice Beam is what's going to take me all the way across the finish line. This is going to be great. Granted, yeah, Thunderbolt would have gone pretty hard here against Gyarados, and it does take me an unfortunate amount of time to get Gyarados to go to sleep. So we are pretty low on our health here. But luckily, we can put the next Dragonair to sleep as well. I got nervous about trying to set up too much against Gyarados in case he woke up. But luckily, Dragonair isn't too dangerous right now, so we have the time and the ability to set up 6 times. We're not in danger of leveling up, so we have a clean and easy sweep of the rest of the team with Ice Beam, Ice Beam, Ice Beam. And what's that? Oh, that's right, of course. It's another Ice Beam. Then we heal up, and we're going to take Ice Beam also again into the final battle. It'll be effective immediately against Sandslash. It's going to be great against Exeggutor in a moment here. Crazy that Sandslash actually didn't go down there. He was one shot in the first time I went against him. Maybe it was a higher roll that time, or perhaps this was just a lower roll. That I think technically is the same, but I meant more of, doesn't matter. You get it. There's a damage threshold and there's a range. So now I put cloister in the battle using Body Slam. I get it paralyzed, but the full restore makes that pointless or, moot. We are pretty low on health going up against Ninetales, and the defense debuff is not helping. Luckily, we put it to sleep and we can now start badge boosting, and it's going to be pretty ideal because we had a -1. It actually boosted the other stats. And then once I get a few setups there, I'm doing pretty well. I outspeed. The Body Slam takes down Jolteon. And while the ending was a little weird because it was kind of like having to re-record it effectively, I would say the time is pretty close to what it probably should have been. Maybe give or take a minute. Maybe 2 minutes at most. But I think this is a pretty accurate depiction of what it was supposed to be before the technical difficulties. I really enjoyed this one. I think that when you think about it, it took us an hour to get 2 badges. And if it took us 25 to 30 minutes, like so many of the other Pokemon typically do, we would have cut so much time off of this. That slow start is what killed the time. 221 is also my birthday, so that's kind of cool. But 221.21 does kind of still ring pretty true for this Pokemon. If we had at least one more move in the beginning, probably would have seen this come in under 2 hours. Perhaps there is a better pathing, a better something, so that we can get there with fewer levels and a little bit less time, but we'll see if I ever come back to this one. I actually feel pretty satisfied with it, just because, again, it was similar to the Clefairy, but different just because of the fact that I was so attack heavy, Either way, I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did. And if you've made it this far and you did enjoy it, please consider giving it a like, a share, a comment. Any kind of interaction that you give me always helps with growing the channel. It's always really helpful to smaller creators when you do stuff like that. And so I always appreciate it very, very much. Anyway, that does it for Jigglypuff. We will see you next week for another solo Pokemon challenge in Pokemon Yellow.